welcome into a For What It's Worth quick take episode 8. It's been a while since I've done one of these. It's your host, Calvin Silvers, and in today's episode, we have one question and one question only that we need to answer. And that question is the Jets firing of their head coach, Robert Saleh, the right move? Now, before we dive too deep into this, let's just go over some facts. I think facts are important to bring to a table when you're about to have a discussion here. Now, he's 20-36 over 3 seasons with the Jets. Not the best record, not something that's going to wow you. Definitely doesn't help his case. Not something that you're going to write about, but it is there. That's just the facts. That's how it was laid out. He is 20-36. Now, let's jump to the next fact here. He had 7 different quarterbacks that he's had to work with throughout his tenure with the Jets. And that include the talents of Mike White, Josh Johnson, and Tim Boyle. And then you had the whole Zach Wilson experiment or project that obviously did not pan out. We'll get to that here in a little bit. But yeah, those are just some of the names of quarterbacks that he's had to work through. Obviously, you are not going to find much success, if any success, with those 3 starting or playing at any point during your tenure. And also, the problem doesn't come from his expertise, right? He got the Jets job because of his expertise on the defensive side of the ball, because of the genius that he brings to defensive schemes and game plans and plays and blah, 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 right? His defense right now is second in the NFL in total defense. They are not the problem. The problem is Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers. Those two are more to blame here. Now, Hackett, I would say more than Rodgers, but just in the fact that, can you really blame Rodgers? He's 40 years old, coming off an Achilles. The dude can't move in the pocket. I'm jumping ahead. We'll get there in a second. But now you might argue that then he should just be a defensive coordinator. But I truly believe that he had the belief there in the locker room. I really do think guys in that locker room trusted him until Aaron Rodgers came and just swiped the rug under Saleh's feet and kind of just took over. Saleh probably should have been more assertive of, I'm the head coach, you will listen to me. But I think he gave Rodgers too much leeway on the leash, and it ended up coming back and biting him. He had to be the scapegoat. So back to the question. Was the Jets firing of their head coach the right move at this moment? No. Like I just mentioned, the wrong person got fired. The person that should have been fired is Nathaniel Hackett. Since Saleh is defensive-minded, he gave the reins to Hackett to call the plays. And we have seen how troublesome that has been for the Jets this season. They're trying to run first and second down, trying to establish the run early on those downs, no matter if it's working or not. They're going to try to get it. And then they expect Rodgers just to be superhuman on 3rd and 6 every time. And he's just, last game he had 3 interceptions trying to force things on 3rd down. You're putting too much pressure on a 40-year-old that can't move in the pocket on 3rd down because your play calling on 1st and 2nd down is so horrible. So let's look at the stats of this Jets offense. They are 25th in points per game, 27th in yards per game, and 27th in yards per play. All rankings in the bottom half of the NFL, the entire NFL. Just a terrible look there. And as I've been mentioning throughout, and I need to say this again to make sure it gets through everyone's skulls, this is a 40-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles injury. And let's not forget, he is so high and mighty that he didn't have to play the preseason games to test where he was. He didn't have to show up to mandatory minicamp to establish this connections with his receivers. Yeah, we're seeing some overthrows. Yes, he's still making throws that we expect him to make, but not at a consistent clip. We're actually seeing him overthrow a lot. The connection's not there. He's not what he used to be. He's not. 10 years ago, maybe he could correct the ship here. You're looking at a 40-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles injury who decided not to play until that very first game. You can argue that you wanted him to get as much rest before he had to put stress on it again, but you needed to see where he kind of stood or where at least the connections were. Again, you're letting him get away with things. That's where you started to lose not only respect from people, but just the team in general. So that brings me to my next point, that Aaron Rodgers had a hand in this firing. He was able to keep his OC. The problem, it's like no one even is batting an eye towards that. It's like it's all just swept under the rug because Rodgers believes in him, or is telling the front office to believe in him, and is able to keep his job. Also, rumor has it that Hackett lost his play calling abilities the same day that Saleh was fired. So coincidence, maybe. I don't know. I think Rodgers probably had a say in it and probably pulled some strings to keep his guy around. Will they even get Devontae Adams, another guy that he might try to have the Jets get quickly? Because they're desperate. This was a desperate move. They needed the blame to be put on someone. They don't want the blame to be put on their star quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, the face of the franchise, the savior, the guy that was supposed to bring the Jets back. They don't want any kind of negative connotation with him. They don't want any negative imagery, whatever, tied here to their star quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. And so their head coach just had to be the fallback guy, had to be the scapegoat for why things aren't working, instead of, oh, it's the guy we brought in here to be the savior. He's the problem. Oh, and it's the guy that he also decided to bring with him. That's the problem. The Jets aren't ready to admit that yet. They're just not there. They're not there yet. So this is where we're really going to see if Aaron Rodgers is the real deal. There's no one to blame anymore. There's no fallback guy for you, Rodgers. You got what you wanted here with your head coach fired. I would have waited till the end of the season, because that's the thing too. Maybe I should have maybe mentioned this earlier. I don't think Saleh is a, Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, or even would get to that type of Mount Rushmore of coaches or anything like that. He's not a Sean McVay. He's not there yet in terms of coaching talents. He's actually bringing something positive to the table, while also should have been having the belief of the guys as well. And it really comes down to, if he didn't have to work with Hackett, a hire he never wanted in the first place, and could actually pick who he wanted as his OC, and maybe a competent OC, then you would have a probably nice offense, because you have the talent on offense right now. That offense is talented, and I think that's why, too, the Jets made this move, is because it is win now or it might be gone. We don't know for sure if we're going to see Rodgers next year, especially if he continues to struggle. We don't know. That man could decide to retire mid-season, and who would really be surprised? He seems like a ticking time bomb at this point. But back to my original point here, the offensive talent is there. So if you just had a competent offensive coordinator, anyone probably but Hackett, I think that would help his case. Maybe a couple more wins in that win column, because like I said, Zach Wilson's not the greatest quarterback ever. But if you would have had a competent OC, maybe could have worked with him, maybe could have picked you up a couple more wins. Now that obviously could have been, should have, would have, all that jazz. But we move on. My third point is that what's the immediate help? What's the immediate impact? You're basically back to square one. You just hired your defensive coordinator. You're not going to hire Hackett. You saw the disaster in Denver. So you're going to have your interim head coach be your defensive coordinator. You already had a defensive coordinator as your head coach, and you just fired him. And now Hackett, like I said earlier, was going to have his play calling duties taken away. I'm not sure that's going to happen anymore. I think he might keep him. So the offense isn't going to improve. You're still going to be calling terrible first and second down plays, and then on third down, just go to Rodgers. That hasn't been working so far. What makes you think it's going to start working now? Why wouldn't you just rock with the guy that you've been rocking with the past 3 seasons? Let him play it out. Let him keep coaching. I'm sure he had the belief of some guys at least, and then fire him. Maybe you could make the Jets a more desirable job depending on how the season goes. And I guess the counter argument would be, though, maybe it could go really bad and no one will want to go there. That's fair enough. I don't get what's the immediate help? Where does the immediate help come from? You're back to square one. You're back to what you already were, and maybe slightly less. Here's my final point. I don't get such a dramatic move when you're one game out of your division, and that's to the Buffalo Bills, who have drop their previous two. And then you have the Tua-less Dolphins. And then you're about to have the other team you have to worry about is the Patriots, who are now turning to Drake May to lead them the rest. Well, I shouldn't say the rest of the way, but they're going to give him a chance and see what he can do. So really, you're just in competition with the Bills, who, like I said, you're only a game out. They lost their previous two. And if the Jets, there's a couple plays that could have them sitting with one or two more wins if they would have made. Now, I know that's football and that's sports. You could say that about a lot of teams, but they're not that bad. It's just the wrong person got fired, and the blame is going to the wrong source. The offense is the problem. Like I said, the timing of the firing is not ideal, nor is it good. Shouldn't have happened. Should have waited till the end of the season and then evaluated there. Because like I said, he's not a top-tier head coach. But I think he brings enough to the table to at least get you to a Super Bowl and what he could do for the defensive side of the ball. Now there's no chance of that. We'll see if they can continue playing stellar defense and if the offense somehow magically improves. But I just think it was a bad timing, and I think, honestly, the wrong person got fired. Well, that is it for this quick take episode. Like I said, episode 8. It was good to get back onto this segment. I love doing these quick takes. Fast, easy, in and out. We love that. Go ahead and follow our socials. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify. Just look up For What It's Worth podcast. Go ahead, share, like, subscribe, do whatever you guys can. Comment, just share the links. I appreciate it. I know my co-stars and Tyrone and Eric and Brian, they really appreciate it as well. But until next time, have a good one.